Welcome in to the PFF NFL Podcast. Steve Palazzolo back here with Sam Monson. Here we are, Monday morning. We in the afternoon now? Monday afternoon.
Yeah.
We're live on YouTube. Live right now, as we've been doing the last few Mondays. And we've appreciated all the viewers tuning in. Hello to everyone listening through the conventional podcast way. Just another exciting week. Week 12, Sam.
The conventional podcast way.
Well, you don't like podcast land.
You've got a great way of describing all of these things.
Well, it's unconventional. It's new going on YouTube Live.
Yeah.
That's new.
Sure.
So, we have a lot to get into, as always, because the playoff picture continues to come into focus. I think we should spend some time just maybe focusing on AFC and NFC.
Okay.
And split it up and just, where your team is landing right now, breaking down the playoff picture a little bit. That sound reasonable?
Okay.
Are you feeling unsafe this morning, though, with
unsafe
Conor McGregor calling you out on Twitter?
Yeah, I didn't see that coming. Yeah, so I was saying that there's one of three possible options, right? Either he has like an alert set up for just his name, because I didn't tag him in the tweet mocking.
Can you explain what you did really quick?
I compared Blake Bortles forgetting how to throw the football to Conor McGregor's attempt at throwing the football that went viral earlier this year when he was in Dallas.
This is the second time you've made that same joke, by the way.
Yeah.
Funny both
joke,
times,
so
I think.
I'm going to roll with it.
Yeah.
And I didn't tag him in it. I just mentioned Conor McGregor, the name. So either he then quote tweeted this and, said some unkind things.
Did that help your follower count?
I don't.
I assume a lot of people must be following you now because of it.
I would think most people are following me anyway, because why wouldn't you?
Did you say he was in Cincinnati?
Well, no. So here's hang on. Let's find the tweet and figure out what he actually said. So he quote tweeted me and said, I'm not even going to attempt his Dublin accent, because much though I have a Dublin accent, sort of, now, it's not the same.
Oh, yeah, that would just confuse all of our listeners if you decided to imitate someone that was Irish. Go ahead.
I can't really do like that kind of Irish either.
Sure.
You could take the crust off your toast with my laser passing ability. Kid, by the way. I'm like 7 years older than he is, but whatever. Open your eyes before they get shut. NFL season, #proper12, @properwhiskey, @NFL.
He just wanted to get those hashtags in there. Does he realize that you're at least a top 5 Irish analyst in the world?
I don't think so, no.
Top 5 Irish football analyst.
But anyway, so he did this, right? The only way for him to have seen this would be either he's got this alert set up for just his name and he scours all tweets that mention Conor McGregor, or somebody in my timeline replied to the initial Blake Bortles tweet and added him, which is possible, but I didn't see it. Or, like, a friend of his, I guess, is enough of a football fan that they follow me, and maybe they just showed it to him. All possible.
I just thought that was interesting. And last week...
But then, so the interesting thing, the thing that I showed you this morning is when we first moved over here, like a year and a half ago or whatever it was, we stayed in this hotel called 21C Museum Hotel, something or other. They've got one in Cincinnati. Apparently there's a bit of a chain. There's a few in other locations. But they have this thing where they have these weird yellow penguins, right? And that's like their gimmick. And they have these like 3-foot tall yellow penguins all around that hotel. They sell like figurines of them and all that kind of stuff. So late last night, McGregor posted a picture of himself standing next to one of these yellow freaking penguins. I'm like, is he in Cincinnati?
So you thought he might have been down the street.
Well, I'm just saying that, we're talking about a guy that relatively recently jumped on a plane to fly over and throw a dolly through a bus when somebody, like, slighted him or his, right?
Yeah.
And at that point, he'd had a few hours. So it was entirely possible that he jumped on a plane and was down
I'm
in
sure he
Cincinnati.
tracked down the kid named Sam Monson
Right.
that was looking for you. So in the past week, you had him call you out on Twitter. I got called out by Todd Gurley on his Instagram story. Did anybody catch that? Because, again, it was kind of hitting. The stories disappear.
It was on Reddit somewhere, right?
Yeah, it's deep down on Reddit. Todd Gurley was not happy with my analysis that he's not in the MVP conversation. He said some unkind things.
He did.
We'll say. So it happens, man. It happens. You also had your voice on the Chris Collinsworth Football Life.
I haven't seen that yet, so
Yeah.
I can't verify that.
That was on NFL Network the other night. We had your voice. There was a little PFF. We recorded something in the office while Chris was prepping for the Super Bowl last year, and a little snippet made it in there, including something about Brandon Graham and pressure and.
Oh, please tell me it's. If only they'd had like the two of us. If they had
Debating
the bet
it?
on film.
No.
You claiming he was going to get 10 sacks and
It never
telling you how
happened.
crazy you were.
Not on film. It never happened. All right, let's get into the playoff picture. Starting with the NFC, we saw the New Orleans Saints sitting at the number 1 seed. They're 10-1. Rams are number 2 right now at 10-1. But we saw the Saints on Thursday night, Thanksgiving night, just continue to roll against the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, we internally. George Shahuri went around the office late last week asking everybody independently what we thought the line should be on the Falcons-Saints game. And everybody was under double digits, which backed up what he himself thought, which is that this line of 13.5 points at the NFL, or that Vegas had it was kind of over the top. Turned out it wasn't. Turned out the Falcons were well good for a double-digit ass-kicking by the Saints, who continue to roll and look absolutely formidable. And what was really impressive in this game was that Drew Brees was doing it. It was like he made a point of everybody I'm going to throw to is going to be an undrafted free agent, just so I can show that I have this stable of guys outside of Michael Thomas who are a bunch of nobodies that I can still get production out of.
There's your MVP case.
Right.
I mean, that he's throwing the ball. Michael Thomas is outstanding. Kamara is outstanding. But Brees, because, and again, I think we captured this extremely well, Brees and his ball location and just decision-making and everything has just been so on point this year. It hasn't really mattered who he's throwing to. Now, there is something to be said. These guys are generally getting open, but that touchdown pass, I think it was the last one. Was that Dan Arnold over the shoulder?
Yeah.
I mean, that was incredible. That was, look the safety off, tight window throw down the field. And Brees on tight window throws this year, accuracy percentage at 65% going into this week. 65 is insane for this number. 65 is a good overall number if you include screens, if you include all open throws. He's at 65 on tight window throws, which is so much higher than everyone else in the NFL. It's not even close. And it's just, one of those numbers that continues to show how well he's playing this year.
Michael Thomas took a real sledgehammer to his catch percentage this week. He only caught 4 out of 6 targets.
Ooh, 67%.
Right, which is way below 90, which is what he's been averaging so far this season.
So the Saints continue to roll. They're in control of their own destiny, of course, because they have the tiebreaker against the Los Angeles Rams. Doesn't look like they're going to slow down anytime soon. The Rams are on bye. Let's discuss the Bears. 8-3. They took on the Lions on Thanksgiving Day as well.
Yeah.
What are you making a face?
Just we're going to wade into this Bears thing again, and you're just, you're setting yourself up.
Bears fans, look. Yeah, I said that they gave up 38 against New England. Yes, I forgot about the special teams points. I understand that, but it's not like they played well that game against New England, their defense. The Bears have the best defense in the NFL. They're incredible. Now, they made some big plays, obviously. Key interceptions down the stretch. The pick six. Eddie Jackson just continues to find the end zone. And the Bears didn't score a ton of points with Chase Daniel at quarterback, but Daniel played okay.
He did. He did play okay. And this so
tread lightly.
Yes.
Tread lightly.
I'm not comparing Chase Daniel to Mitchell Trubisky, but what I am saying is that this kind of reinforces what we've been saying all season long, which is that the scheme and the supporting cast is all excellent and extremely conducive to a quarterback playing well, or at least getting good production. So Chase Daniel played reasonably well. Had some excellent statistics, even just the box score stuff. You look at it, 27, 37, 230 yards, 2 touchdowns, a passer rating of 107, which this season is like slightly above average.
Yeah, right. Barely.
But this was the same kind of deal, right? There was not much deep. He had 5 attempts that were deep shots. They were all deep right, and he completed 1 of them. But everything else was basically on the money. And it kind of reinforces that whole point, right?
The difference
he didn't
between
have to play amazingly, and he still was able to have this kind of production because of what the scheme is doing.
But the difference between him and Trubisky was the running ability, where Daniel didn't add much as a runner, where Trubisky's picked up a bunch of first downs, both as a scrambler and in the designed running game. If you want to call it a difference, that would be it. Detroit falls to 4-7. pretty much out of it
Yeah.
at this point in the NFC, and I still believe this is kind of the regression that was inevitable at some point.
You're just shooting for like a holy trinity of pissing fan bases off. You're going for the Lions fans as well.
I think Lions fans have turned their attention to the offseason. They're watching our free agent and draft content now.
Okay.
What do you think?
I'm all for you taking shots at all the fan bases and getting all the hate. I'm good. You keep going.
Okay.
Who else do you want to take a hammer to, Steve?
How about the Eagles?
Excellent. Let's go.
I don't know if this is in order or whatever, but Eagles fans, I mean, they came back and won. They're still technically alive. But, man, what a disappointing season.
Technically alive.
They're currently number 9 in the NFC seeding. I was ready to concede, though, that they're just not good. But it really is so much of what's happening in the secondary.
I mean, their secondary is ridiculous. They are decimated. In fact, they're way worse than decimated because if you think back to what decimated is, it's you lose 1 out of every 10 soldiers. Now, granted, they get stoned to death by the other 9, but still. The Eagles have lost way more than 1 out of every 10. They've lost, like, the entire secondary.
It's like 4 out of 5.
Yeah, like more, potentially, if you go deep down the depth chart. They are just everybody they were counting on the back end is gone, except for Malcolm Jenkins, basically. And we were, we said last year we put so much of their Super Bowl season down to the idea that they finally fixed the secondary problems. There've been disasters at corner and wide receiver for years. They finally fixed the cornerback problem, and it was a huge part of propelling them all the way to the Super Bowl. And now they kind of, at least on paper, retained the talent there, even if they let Patrick Robinson go in free agency. But then injuries just took an absolute sledgehammer to it. And, I mean, it doesn't matter who's there on paper if everybody's healthy. Nobody's left standing anymore.
You see who their starting corners were?
This week?
Chandon Sullivan,
right?
Devontae Bosby.
Yeah, and then Crevon LeBlanc was in the slot trying to cover Odell Beckham.
Love LeBlanc.
I mean, that was just, that's a disaster.
Yeah, I don't know. There was a few years ago, where the Patriots had Matthew Slater playing safety, and they were literally pulling guys off the street to play safety who had never played before in like 2011 or so. This might be the most depleted I've ever seen a secondary, though.
And the thing is, they were still like lining guys up in press man coverage against Odell Beckham and saying, give it a shot.
Right.
What's the worst that could happen?
And Odell Beckham saying, I wish we were a little more aggressive with how banged up they are.
If it was me, I would have gone after those cornerbacks, but apparently that wasn't the game plan.
I mean, even Eli's having a good statistical season this year, even though he's not playing well. He's played well to a point. I mean, he's made some decent throws. He hasn't actually been that bad throwing the ball down the field. They're just so conservative. He'll make a few good ones, and granted, he had that terrible interception at the end of the half. But at this point, why not just be aggressive?
Yeah.
The fact that Eli has good stats behind a bad offensive line, I think just shows what that offense is capable of. I mean, Saquon Barkley, as much as we talk about, devaluing the running back and all that fun stuff, he's going to pad some QB stats through the years.
Yeah.
You're going to be getting some free yards and touchdowns from Saquon and what he can do with the ball in his hands, whether it's Eli or the next quarterback there.
We also need to highlight this game as being an opportunity for Brandon Graham that went begging. You had kind of earmarked the 2 Giants games over the season as a couple of games where Brandon Graham going up against Chad Wheeler could have produced the bulk of the 10 sacks you need him to acquire this season in order to win your bet.
It's not looking
but
good.
This, against two games against the Giants, Brandon Graham has actually managed 0 sacks and only 4 hurries. 0 sacks, 0 hits, 4 total hurries.
And still grading really well in the season.
Yeah, grading well, but not helping you win your bet.
No, I'm not going to win my bet at all. Malcolm Jenkins did his best to keep the Eagles, or to help lead the Eagles to victory. He had the interception of Eli, had a forced fumble, 92.8 overall grade, one of the best we saw all week. And, Eagles win despite the depleted secondary.
Yeah, and it's important for them, but they're a team where obviously there's still a lot of talent. If they were able to get healthy and patch up that secondary, they would be an extremely dangerous team. I just don't know if the margin for error is gone now for the Eagles.
Right.
Like, the good news for them is that division is still kind of chaotic enough that they're still in it. I mean, they're actually 1 game back from Dallas and Washington.
It's really chaotic because, Dallas, let's discuss Dallas-Washington. They on Thanksgiving, the playoff picture right now has Dallas at 6-5 with the number 4 seed, winning the NFC East with the tiebreaker over Washington, who is now 6-5 and sitting there as a wild card team right now. In this NFC that we've talked about all year is just being loaded because it's like a playoff game every single week. And you've got Green Bay, you have Atlanta, you have Philadelphia, Seattle, and Carolina outside of the playoff picture at this very moment, with Washington sitting there at 6-5. What are your thoughts, Washington columnist Sam?
I mean, I think Washington are probably done just because of that injury to Alex Smith. I don't think that they're demonstrably different with Colt McCoy at quarterback than they are with Alex Smith. They're just worse. Like, the style is going to be broadly the same. He's just not as good. So I think Washington's going to end up falling away. But the Eagles, the good news for them is they still have to play both Washington and Dallas. So in theory, they can propel themselves back into this division race, which could end up being truly kind of ridiculous. This could be one of these, 8-8 winning division games again, or divisions again by the end of the season. But Philadelphia play Washington up next. They then have to face Dallas, which I think is the real game left in that division. Let's assume Washington are going to fall away. Dallas are the presumptive next team up. They're a game ahead of Philadelphia, and they've already beaten Philadelphia, which means the Eagles really need to win that game if they want to come back into this.
So even with the terrible secondary, shouldn't Philadelphia just be so much better than those two teams, though? When you look at where they're still decent enough on the offensive line.
Yeah.
They've got playmakers on the outside. Carson Wentz, outside of that Saints game, has played okay.
Right.
Now, he hasn't played like last year's. It's when he's played well. Last year he was incredible on third down, tough to sustain. He hasn't been there. But Wentz is the best quarterback in that division still.
Yeah.
I mean, Philadelphia's...
I don't think you're appreciating just how bad that secondary is.
I understand.
Right
I
now.
appreciate it, but...
Like, they're bad enough to the point where they're lining people up and you're saying every single snap is a touchdown waiting to happen.
Yeah, perhaps. Washington is going to have to ride their defense. Dallas, I think, still has to ride their defense. Dallas is in this every other game mode. The other day it was Amari Cooper making the big plays, but it's like every other game they look like a competent offense, then they look like a bad offense.
I mean, I would say the Eagles need to win the 3 remaining games against Washington and Dallas, because outside of that they have to play the Rams away and they have to play the Texans, who, despite all logic, still keep winning games. And they, of course, are already behind Dallas with the tiebreaker and a game.
Right.
So if the Eagles actually want to win this division, they need to take those 3 games from the other teams within the division, because they're definitely not beating the Rams, and they may not beat the Texans either.
It's going to take a superhuman effort from that offense.
And if they did
an aggressive effort from that offense.
And if they did that, that would put them at 8-8 on the season, which could be enough to win the division, depending on what Dallas managed to do.
So NFC East, man, fun Thanksgiving, watching a little NFC action the whole day. Let's go NFC North. Last night's game, Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers. Before the season, we said there are going to be some teams, or at least I said, there are going to be some teams in the NFC with bad records who aren't that bad as a team. Are the Packers that at 4-6-1? There's no way they're that bad. Like in any other season, they're going to be better than that, right?
Well, the Packers have the same record right now through 12 weeks as the Cleveland Browns. And, yeah, I would say they are better than the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, that's my point. Aaron Rodgers continues to just be really weird because on a throw-for-throw basis, grading really well. But a lot of his negative play, or the plays that are just not moving the ball forward for the team, his 47 throwaways. Did you see that stat I tweeted out last night?
No.
He's thrown the ball away 47 times.
That is a lot.
Drew Brees on the season has 82 total incompletions. 82. That includes, of course, off-target throws. It includes throwaways, batted passes. 82. So Rodgers, I'm not saying he's not being aggressive at all because he still makes special throws left and right. He's got as many big-time throws as any QB in the league right now. But at some point, does he just need to start trusting the system a little bit more, taking chances? They also lead the league in third down sacks. So it's when these negative plays are coming that is just killing Green Bay. If something's not there, Rodgers isn't even taking a chance to make something happen. So he's not turning the ball over, but he's 47 throwaways. Even if you just chuck up 15 or 20 of those, good things could happen, right? And then just a ton of sacks.
Yeah.
And then just missed throws at key opportune times these last couple weeks.
What is the record for throwaways in a season? Isn't it like 20-something? That Phillip Rivers season where he thought he was throwing away at some crazy rate?
Yeah, I didn't check, but I think Rodgers has it already.
Right. But
I'm
has
pretty sure
it by
he has
almost
it.
double, I think, at this point.
I don't know. Let me check it was 2012. Rivers had a ton. I don't know if that was the exact record that we've had.
It's kind of interesting because this Packers offense is getting itself into this situation where it kind of looks a little bit like previous Alex Smith-led offenses throughout the league and certain Vikings offenses as well, where because you're not taking chances constantly, you're running this game that requires essentially an unrealistic level of execution in order to consistently work, right? So you're throwing away a ton of passes, you're taking sacks here and there, you're not being as aggressive as you need to be constantly into windows that essentially require a bit of guesswork and a bit of gambling to make happen, which means you need to execute what's left at a superhuman level in order to keep the thing functioning, to keep the thing moving along. And they just keep finding themselves in a situation where they trip up, and they're not capable of overcoming the mistake that trips up, or the mistake comes in a situation where they've put themselves in a do-or-die spot. Like they've already landed themselves in this is a must-execute down, and you screw that up, and now it's game over. So, like, this Packers offense is, via a slightly different methodology, they've kind of wound up in that situation where they're demanding their own execution be way higher than it's actually capable of being in order to function.
But the difference then, with the comparison you made between an Alex Smith or a Vikings offense, is that Aaron Rodgers is capable of making these special throws. He's got 30 big-time throws. That's tied for second in the league against only 3 turnover-worthy throws. That is an absurd ratio. If you're 2-to-1 in that ratio, it's absurd. I mean, it's really good. 2-to-1's good, 3-to-1's excellent, 4-to-1, 5-to-1, you start to get into the best in the league. Like Drew Brees, for instance, 24 big-time throws and 6 turnover-worthy throws, and that's great. Like 4-to-1's awesome. Aaron Rodgers is 10-to-1. Now, this doesn't include his fumbles. Throw a couple fumbles in there, he's closer to 5 or 6-to-1, but it's still the best ratio in the league by a wide margin. But then there's a million sacks in there as well.
Yeah.
And inopportune sacks, right?
The sacks, the throwaways, these are all just costing you downs and putting you in a situation where you need to make something special happen in order to keep the drive alive.
And we see this like last night, the final drive. Rodgers' last drive, he makes a special downfield throw. It's awesome. And then he comes back and misses a third down in the flat and then misses a wide-open touchdown. And that wouldn't have been a big-time throw if he hit the touchdown. That was wide open. That was a gimme.
Yeah, and
they're an easy grade on the table.
And they're kind of in the same situation a little bit as Philadelphia in terms of getting banged up in the secondary. You know, there's big plays happening on the other side of the ball, so you need Rodgers to keep ticking over. You need him to actually keep functioning and keep scoring. And they keep putting themselves in this position where they need to make it happen on this down right now, otherwise the drive's done.
Right.
And as good as Rodgers is playing, and he's making a ton of these plays, the number of plays he's leaving on the table, it always arises in this key down, this key situation, and that's why they're falling short in these games.
Yeah, last 2 weeks, some very important misses in opportune times. His numbers in the fourth quarter this year are still really good.
Yeah. But
in key games in recent weeks, at New England, at Seattle last night, all on the road here, at Minnesota, haven't been great. So Green Bay at 4-6-1. Now, if they still win out, it's possible they can win out.
It is possible.
Happened a couple years ago.
Yeah, I would say it's
but
unlikely.
they would be 9. Yeah,
given the current state of this team.
5 more wins to get to 9-6-1.
Yeah.
So they're hanging by a thread. Minnesota 6-4-1. They head to New England next week, and then what do they have? Seattle after that, right? I mean, they've got a tough.
They
road.
have like the hardest stretch of any team. I think they're as of a week or so ago, or 2 weeks ago, their strength of schedule remaining for the season was like the toughest of any team in the NFL.
Yeah,
they're going to have a pretty tough road of it.
Does anything sum up Kirk Cousins more than back-to-back Sunday night games where 1 week he's a disaster and he's not worth the money, and the next week it's big throw after big throw, and he's everything you want? Granted, man, there were some passes that were off target or even on target, but that were just like Thielen's making great catches, Rudolph's making great catches. That receiving core is awesome. But nothing sums up Kirk Cousins like 1 week everybody's writing him off, he's overrated, and then the next week he's playing the game he's supposed to play against the Green Bay Packers, your big rival.
Yeah, this was the game where Kirk Cousins showed why they brought him in, right? He's done this against the Packers both times. They kept showing on the broadcast on Sunday Night Football the numbers he's had against Green Bay have just been absurd. Like both, I think, at Washington and now for the Vikings. His numbers against the Packers have just been insane. And obviously you think back to how much the kicker has screwed them. Collective kickers, multiple kickers have screwed the Vikings over these 2 games against the Packers. Carlson, I think, missed 3 kicks in the first game. And then Dan Bailey, did he miss 2 yesterday? To the point where Mike Zimmer came out and said he's not even kicking after halftime. He's not putting it in the hands of the kicker anymore. But, yeah, this was the game that Kirk Cousins was supposed to have. Thielen and Diggs remain ridiculous in terms of route running and the ability to make special things happen. Like the matchup between Thielen rather and Jair Alexander was pretty fun.
Oh, it was awesome.
Because Alexander had a couple of spectacular plays against him. The one early on where he just destroyed a bubble screen by essentially taking a flying leap at Adam Thielen, understanding he wasn't going to get round him.
Right.
Just decided he was going to go through him instead. And
right through him to the receiver.
Yeah, tossed Adam Thielen into, was it Diggs that was taking the bubble screen?
Diggs ended up running backwards for another 10.
Just killed the play for like a 5-yard loss because he torpedoed Thielen. But he also had another play later in the game where he decked Thielen basically by jamming him at the line. Just a straight press coverage, jam at the line, put Thielen on his ass. But then Thielen got him a few times in terms of route running. Managed to shake him loose a couple of times. Made a couple of plays against him. So that was a fun kind of battle back and forth between those two.
All right, so let's move on. So, again, tough road for Minnesota.
So they have they're at the Patriots, at the Seahawks. Then they play the Dolphins at home. The last 2 games are the ones that are going to define their season because they're on the road against the Detroit Lions in Week 16, and then Week 17 is at home against the Chicago Bears, who could have wrapped up the division by then, could have nothing to play for. Either way, that's likely to be fairly defining for the Vikings.
Yeah, they're essentially a game and a half kind of behind Chicago because this stupid tie throwing things off. But really more like 2 games because of the tiebreaker. So if you're Minnesota, you're focused on the Redskins. You're focused on the teams we're going to talk about next with Seattle and Carolina, Philadelphia. So it's all about getting that wild card spot. Seattle Seahawks and Carolina Panthers. Talk about 2 teams now going in different directions. Seattle beats Green Bay 2 weeks ago. Huge win in Carolina now. They're both 6-5 with Seattle holding the tiebreaker. And as you look at these standings here, Washington, Seattle, and Carolina are all 6-5. We already talked about Washington with Colt McCoy at the helm. You have to feel pretty good about Seattle sliding into that wild card spot now.
Right. We said a while ago that it looked like they may be the team that kind of ends up 500 or better, but ends up missing out in the playoffs because they had to face the Rams twice. This week, this game was something that might actually change that. Like they beat a team in Carolina on the road that they probably weren't expected to win, and that basically propels them past the Panthers in that hierarchy of NFC teams chasing the playoffs, and they have almost the reverse of the Vikings problem. So they face the Vikings, but they get to play the 49ers twice. They haven't played them yet. They do have to face the Chiefs, which is a problem, but then they get the Arizona Cardinals as well. So for them, that should be at least 3 wins, even if they lose against both of the good teams that they're facing, and bearing in mind the Vikings are coming to Seattle. Like if they win 3 games, that puts them at 9. If they get the Vikings as well, that's 10 wins. That should put them in the playoffs.
Is it crazy to think that Seattle and their situation, the situation that Russell Wilson is in Seattle, is not that different from what Aaron Rodgers is in Green Bay? Talent and coaching around him.
Yeah, I don't see a great parallel that you seem to, but
I'm not saying it's a perfect parallel, but
sell it to me.
I'm saying in recent weeks, Russell Wilson's had his fair share of mishaps in the fourth quarter this year. We've had pick sixes against the Chicago Bears and against the Chargers. However, also, game on the line against Green Bay, made it happen. Game on the line yesterday against Carolina, made it happen. And overall, he's still grading pretty well. Statistically, everything's pretty good, all that fun stuff. And he's doing it with an offensive coordinator who came in there and said, I'm running the ball. We are going to run the ball. I know we have Russell Wilson, who's a top 5 to 10 quarterback, but we are going to run the ball. And Russell Wilson's still having an excellent season, and in recent weeks making these plays in crunch time. Seattle's defense, not good. They're not good. He does not. He has the worst situation of his career.
Whoa.
I would say.
Whoa,
Russell
there.
Wilson. Do you think last year was worse?
I think there are years where his offensive line has been so actively trying to kill him that you can't possibly say that this current one is a worse.
I'm talking about his team situation as far as winning football games.
I would suggest that if the Seahawks make the playoffs this year, they will be one of the most dangerous teams that nobody would want to face.
I think that's everybody in the NFC, though.
I
wouldn't want if Minnesota's at if Minnesota's the 5 seed and Seattle's the 6 seed.
I would much rather face Minnesota than Seattle if I'm one of the top seeds heading into the postseason.
I don't know. I think you're heading into a year where in both conferences, the 5 and 6 seeds might be better than or have as good of a shot of knocking off the division winners as any year in the past.
Yeah, I'm just saying that, the Vikings will be strong essentially on defense again if they get back in shape, and that matters less than it's ever mattered before. The Seahawks defense isn't great, but they have Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson is capable of beating essentially any of these teams almost single-handedly. I would not want to face Russell Wilson if I was pretty much any team in the NFC.
That's the other part. He's making names out of no names in the receiving corps. So every excuse that Aaron Rodgers has, it's Mike McCarthy, it's the play calling, he doesn't have any easy throws, he's got no receivers. Like, there's truth in all of that, but to put it all on that, like Aaron Rodgers still he missed those easy throws when he needed to. It's not like he had a wide open check down. Everybody's like, he never gets any nice easy throws. He had a wide open check down when he took a sack last night in the fourth quarter in a key situation. I just think there are some parallels there. I'm impressed with what Seattle's doing. That's all.
Yeah, like I say, this was a watershed game for them. This propelled them past the Carolina Panthers in the NFC seeding and put them essentially from outside looking in to right. I think they're now. I don't know if they're favorites, but they are firmly in the mix to take that wild card spot.
And then with Carolina, Cam played a very efficient game again. Had the bad interception.
Are they the worst 6?
Are they the worst? No. They're a reasonable 6-5 team now. They were a bad 6-2 team. They were the worst. I've been proven correct, right? They're the worst 6-2 team in history because now they're 6-5.
Okay.
So Carolina they lost to Pittsburgh, Detroit, and Seattle over the last 3 weeks. They've got Cam playing at the most efficient level of his career when it comes to completion percentage and all that stuff. He has the nice, he's got Christian McCaffrey setting records for percentage of snaps that he's playing.
That's crazy. Like we should talk about that a little bit. Christian McCaffrey right now is playing 97% of his team snaps. He has only missed 21 snaps so far this season. They've played 600 and something, and he's missed 21 of them. Now, for any position, that's pretty good. Like, there are offensive linemen that have missed 21 snaps, and offensive linemen typically play every single snap of the season. What I haven't looked into yet, but we should check out, is how many of those 21 snaps were him getting banged up and having to miss a play or two, or how many they actually voluntarily took him off the field for. Because basically they're not doing that at all at the moment. Right. Now, Todd Gurley this year is up at 84%, something like that.
We looked it up. We'll have to do a video on this, but I think it's 3 or 4 of the top 10 from a percentage standpoint since we started this in 2006 or from this year. Gurley's up there, Barkley's up there.
But the highest figure we've ever seen from a running back was Matt Forte back when, again, he never came off the field, and he was playing 94-point-something percent of his snaps. So there is a clear jump between the highest percentage of snaps we've ever seen from a running back and what Christian McCaffrey is being asked to do right now. And this is from a guy who is an undersized running back who people questioned whether he could be a feature running back at the next level because he's small, because he never blah, blah, all this kind of stuff. Like, he is more of a workhorse right now than any other back in the league or than any back we've ever seen.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Kind of insane.
The little guy.
Yeah.
Little Christian McCaffrey. And we saw, I always like to talk about the easy touchdowns. Cam's last touchdown was wide open in the flat to McCaffrey, but the throw before that was spectacular on, I think it was Olsen's hands in the end zone. Really nice. Let's go back to Cam. We could spend an hour talking about Cam, as always.
These are really small sample size numbers, but they're kind of funny, so we should mention them. This week against the Seahawks, Cam Newton's passer rating from a clean pocket was 136. When he was pressured, it was 2.8.
Oh, boy. That's a big difference.
Yeah. Now, he was only pressured 6 times, so we're only talking about 6 plays, but still, two completions for 17 yards with an interception in there.
Here's my, as I'm looking at this stat, this is amazing. Oh, man, let me just drop it right now. Number 3, there's 2 guys tied for 3rd in turnover-worthy plays this year. Jameis Winston and Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Perfect.
Both tied with 15. That's amazing.
I still say they should decide who's starting by coin flip before the game, and that guy gets to halftime to prove he deserves to go out for the second half.
Wow.
I don't see a problem with that.
They're actually tied with Andy Dalton and Andrew Luck as well. Cam Newton has 14 turnover-worthy throws, tied for 7th worst in the league. He's tied with Mitchell Trubisky, Eli Manning, and Case Keenum. So in a year where he's got the highest completion percentage by far of his career, and it's a shorter pass game, average depth of target is under 8, which is absurdly low for him. He only has 11 big-time throws, and that's where he's supposed to be special, right? So 11 big-time throws ranks 25th in the NFL. Actually just ahead of Deshaun Watson and Marcus Mariota, who play tonight. Alex Smith is in that range. Sam Darnold, Dak Prescott, Joe Flacco, Mitchell Trubisky. So even though you've manipulated Cam into this more efficient, what?
Oh, you mean the Panthers rather than
Not
me.
you, the Panthers. You've manipulated him into a more efficient passer. Is that truly what you want? Because he's still got the high turnover-worthy play percentage, including that, like pick 6 against Pittsburgh and all that stuff, the bad decisions. Do you really want to harness him that much?
Well, this was always the question, right? This is why I was kind of disappointed that this marriage between Norv Turner and Cam Newton didn't just run the Norv Turner playbook from the last time we saw him running that, which is the 7-step drop stuff, the 2 wide receivers out in patterns, the max protect, the deep down the field stuff that when you don't have an offensive line and you don't have great receivers, you don't have a quarterback that's prepared to basically fire the ball into 50-50 situations regularly, results in this endless procession of checkdowns that goes nowhere, and it looks miserable. So you saw this with Teddy Bridgewater and that Norv Turner offense, and it just looked depressing for everybody involved. But the one quarterback I think that might actually marry up with that and make it look interesting in today's NFL is Cam Newton. Because we said for years, again, why fight this concept that Cam Newton is an inherently inaccurate quarterback when compared with actual accurate quarterbacks? But instead of fighting that, let's look at what he does well. And what he does well is makes these big-time throws down the field. He can fire the ball into tight windows down the field. He has one of the top 5 strongest arms in the NFL. All of the big, the kind of high-impact things that he can do marries amazingly well with this Norv Turner system that he's kind of abandoned to try and turn him into this high-efficiency passer that just it doesn't quite have the same effect.
But on the other hand, you're getting you want to get the outcome of your passing attack, and you're getting there. He's got the highest passer rating and all that fun jazz of his career, even though it's relative to the rest of the league.
Yeah.
It's not that great.
Everybody's jumped up, so yeah.
So it's just more Cam discussion. What do we do with Cam? So Carolina's put themselves in a little bit of a hole, but they're still very much in it because, again, they're competing with Minnesota, Washington, Seattle, Philadelphia for that wild card spot.
Yeah, and they travel to face the Bucs. They travel to face the Browns, which is no longer a gimme. But then they get, again, the NFC South every single season seems to play each other all in the last 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
So in the last 3 weeks, the Panthers have to play home and away against the Saints, and they have to face the Falcons again for the second time, this time at home. So those 3 games...
It's a rough stretch.
Right, and those 3 games probably define their season, right? How they do against the Saints in that series and whether they get a win against the Falcons.
Did we hit everybody pretty much? Didn't touch on Arizona, San Francisco. They're battling 2-9, battling for that number 1 overall pick.
What about the Browns?
I'm talking about the NFC here.
Oh, the NFC? We're still doing the NFC?
We still have the AFC to do.
God.
If you don't want to be here,
yeah,
you can go.
I can?
No, you can't. We need you
okay.
here. We need you here. The people want to hear you.
You could do like a Bill Burr monologue podcast just by yourself for the next 30 minutes.
Oh, that would be terrible. I don't think anybody wants that.
How long would you last? If you had to sit here and just talk on your own?
Who is this guy in our chat here, taking over our chat?
I don't know. I'm not reading the chat or the comments.
Sometimes you have to, Sam.
I don't think you do.
Sometimes you have to.
I don't think you would last half an hour doing a monologue Bill Burr style podcast.
I'll do one. Oh, so we wanted to have a little poll for everyone, too, because we've been talking about doing a bonus podcast. We'll put an actual poll out there on the PFF podcast.
We will?
Yes, we're going to put a poll out there.
Okay.
If we were to have a bonus podcast, middle of the week, what would you want to hear? Something 25, 30 minutes? Is it, something breaking down a positional ranking? Is it going through in more depth about some of the news? Something in depth about our grading? What other types of stuff do you think we could do midweek that would work? I want to hear what the listeners have to say, but give more ideas of what we could do.
Well, we've got a half an hour podcast we could do today on Joe Schmidt leaving Ireland.
Can you stay on topic, please?
No.
Ireland's going to be fine. Look, Joe Schmidt's, he's had a great run with Ireland, but they're prepared for this.
They beat the USA this week.
All right, can you finish my thought here while it's
What was
fresh?
your thought?
Other ideas for a midweek podcast.
That
bonus
was finished.
Podcast.
We did it. It was the end.
All right, you guys come up with
Period.
ideas then. You guys
There.
come up with ideas.
Period. That's finished. Done.
Okay.
I literally put a period at the end of your thought. It's now finished.
Thanks. You're really helpful.
Okay.
A lot of people questioning your mustard shirt there.
In what way are they questioning it?
Probably the color.
What? I don't understand. What's the question about a mustard shirt?
It's a strong mustard.
It's mustard colored. That's the end.
Let's discuss the AFC playoff picture
Okay.
a little bit. Pittsburgh, Denver. Pittsburgh losing in Denver has them drop from potential number 2 seed to number 4 currently, if the playoffs started today, which they don't, obviously. And Pittsburgh has a tough road. They still have to play the Saints. They still have to play the Chargers. They still have to play New England. And
they never win against New England.
They don't. I thought they were going to pull it off. We were watching this game in the office. Thought they were going to pull this one off.
I thought they were going to take it to overtime and ruin our late segment on Sky. That's what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah, they were going to knock us off Sky, but we made it. We made it onto Sky for our daily recap. I don't know if they're in trouble necessarily. They'll still make the playoffs, but I think they're in trouble for that number 2 seed potentially. I think it'll end up being Kansas City and New England getting buys.
Yeah. So what's interesting about the Steelers is the James Conner thing has kind of gone away a little bit. Like he was on this incredible tear. He was matching any production that Le'Veon Bell has ever had. And then the past couple of weeks, it's gone AWOL. Against the Jags, he had 9 carries for 25 yards. This week, it was 13 carries for 53 yards. And it's kind of this perfect embodiment of, okay, a guy can be really good and be playing extremely well, but then the blocking disappears, and what does it matter? Like, you can't, as a running back anymore, overcome the blocking that's put in front of you for any extended period of time. We're kind of seeing, and people are, so what's ironic is that some people are using this as like you still think he's as good as Le'Veon Bell?
Yeah.
But the whole point is that it doesn't matter. Like, he's probably not as good as Le'Veon Bell.
He's dependent like every other
that's
running
fine,
back is the thing.
But both he and Le'Veon Bell are dependent on the blocking and the situation around them.
The bigger issue is Pittsburgh came out, decided to throw the ball. They threw the ball 31 times in the first half. Xavier Grimble was running into the end zone and decided to try to hit Will Parks and gets the ball. That
was your first mistake, taking on Will Parks.
Don't mess with Will Parks.
Bobby Slowick's guy.
Your favorite, his favorite from draft season. So Pittsburgh scored 17 points, but they're a weird Xavier Grimble play away from 24, and then Big Ben has them driving down, and a bad decision in the red zone,
bad doesn't do that justice. I mean, that was horrendous.
Yeah, that
decision.
could have been picked by two guys.
Like, it was picked by the defensive tackle, and you get kind of caught up with, oh, how come he didn't see that guy? Why couldn't he? And you're like, forget the defensive tackle is there for a minute. Like, plot the path of that ball past the defensive tackle and see what was going to happen. Like, it was going to get picked off by somebody else.
Oh, yeah, it would have been bad.
Like, Marquise Pouncey had the best shot at that pass of any Steeler, and he was like, he had no shot at it.
Right.
Like, that pass was unbelievably bad.
Big Ben played a really good game other than that, though. Under pressure, that 97-yard touchdown to Juju was fantastic. The Steelers' offense is still fine.
Yeah.
I for the 20th year in a row, I don't trust their defense.
Pro Bowler Marquise Pouncey getting, I mean, I don't even know what you call that. It was, he didn't even provide a speed hump to Shelby Harris on that play.
No.
Shelby Harris took him and launched him backwards towards Ben Roethlisberger.
You tweeted it out.
It was unbelievable. Like, Shelby Harris is a pretty good interior rusher. We've been saying that before. He's one of those preseason PFF studs who actually became a useful player.
Yeah.
But Pouncey was destroyed on that play. He's the leading vote getter, by the way, in the Pro Bowl. Has absolutely no business being anywhere near the Pro Bowl this season.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's bad, but he is average again for the, how many times has he been in the league now? Or how many seasons?
2011?
So
First year?
it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So he's average for the 8th season in a row.
Yeah, that looks right.
Which is what he is. But for some reason, he was anointed as a perennial Pro Bowler right from the get-go. So that's what he will always be. Though actually, if you look at I only saw a couple of tweets about this, but the kind of leading vote getters in Pro Bowl votes, they're all Pittsburgh Steelers. So all that sort of shows you is that the Steelers apparently can mobilize the hell out of a Pro Bowl vote because everybody at the top of the
They're
voting.
one of our worst fan bases as far as just general.
Well, it's because they're spending all of their time voting for the Pro Bowl.
That explains a lot.
They're not reading or listening to anything we do. They are all out there endlessly hitting enter on their Pro Bowl ballots.
On the wrong players because they don't listen to us.
Well, on their players. Doesn't
Just their
matter
players.
if they're wrong
Yeah,
or not. It's just they're voting for Steelers players.
That's true. We love you Steelers fans, kind of. Who else can we piss off? New England takes
We've
care
only
of
just
business.
started the AFC, so we can notch off another few as we go.
You can't piss off Patriots fans.
Really?
No.
I think you'll find I've done that quite as successfully in the past.
Oh wait, you may have pulled that off.
Yeah.
So the Patriots take care of business against the Jets. They now take over the number 2 seed, and again, they're in control of their getting a bye, which has been pretty crucial for their Super Bowl runs.
Gronk made 2 of the most spectacular plays of the week, and essentially one was a catch and one was a pass breakup. And they were almost the same play, actually, just in slightly different situations. He caught a beautiful pass for a touchdown deep down in the middle and held on through almost immediate bang-bang contact. The ball arrives. He takes a solid shoulder from the safety, still holds on, touchdown.
That's a great play.
But then he also lays out in the right corner of the end zone, full extension, pass breakup with one hand on a ball that would have been intercepted by the defensive back right behind him. That is one of the best defensive plays you'll find this entire season.
It's because he got owned on the route.
Right,
on the way there.
when it was preventing the interception.
Yeah, he got owned on the route on the way there, though.
Yeah,
but he did go full Des Bryant.
Incredible pass breakup.
Better than Julio's?
Well, that was a hit rather than a sort of play on the ball. So different types of pass breakup, but as good.
Gronk's still not the same guy. Still not separating. And when we talked about, it's fun to highlight individual players even in losing efforts. Jamal Adams was just fantastic. We highlighted him on our Sky show or our Sky segment yesterday, exactly why the Jets drafted him. I know it's a losing effort and all that stuff. But he was targeted 4 times, didn't give up a catch, broke up a pass against Gronk, had that one where he just owned him on a couple deep routes where Brady forced the ball to Gronk, and then he was around the line of scrimmage with 4 run stops. And again, I know they gave up 200 yards on the ground and all that stuff, but as an individual effort goes, Jamal Adams was fantastic.
What's impressive is that he is this throwback player who still hits, still gets really physical and aggressive, and plays in a way the game used to be played back in 1997. And apparently you can still do that. Most people can't. It gets flagged everywhere, but somehow Jamal Adams is still able to thrive and be successful in 2018 playing in that way, which I think is extremely encouraging for everybody, because it's not like he's doing that getting flagged every week, and you're just sort of saying, well, okay, he's playing really well, so we'll accept 20 penalties in a season, the same way you do with Ndamukong Suh throughout his career. It's like he will be the most penalized player on the defensive line, but he's good enough that we don't really care. Jamal Adams has been flagged once this season. Like, he is out there decleating guys with hits and wrecking people.
Legally.
And he's been flagged once. So you can still play in this violent, aggressive manner, in this sanitized, padded, cotton wool protected environment of today's NFL. It's possible. Just see Jamal Adams. He's showing you.
Yeah, he's playing really well. That's why they drafted him. They drafted him to slow down Gronk, and for the most part, he did. So New England's at number 2. Kansas City had a bye. Houston's playing tonight. They're at number 3 seed right now. Chargers took care of business against the Cardinals. Phillip Rivers, 1 incompletion.
Yeah.
And then Geno Smith came in and threw 3. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Phillip Rivers goes 28 for 29. I think some people are going to be wondering, if Phillip Rivers doesn't miss a throw, why doesn't he have a 100 grade? Why doesn't he have a perfect passer rating? And it's actually funny. By every metric, he wasn't the best quarterback in the league yesterday. Whether you're using straight passer rating, I don't think he was. If you were using QBR, if you were using adjusted net yards per attempt, because difficulty of throw and all that stuff has a factor as well. But he played a really good, efficient game.
He did. I mean, it's one of those things where it's possible to be extremely good and not the best in, anything. So I think he's going to wind up being our, number 2 graded quarterback on the week. And he's probably he's probably top 3 in pretty much every statistical category. It's just that the only reason anybody is talking about it is because he went 28 of 29.
But
however many straight completions that was and broke the record.
Can we pull one out for Mark Brunell?
Mark has got nothing left.
He's my all-time favorite player.
Right, and that was the only thing he had left.
That was his record. He did it with Washington. He didn't do it during my heyday, watching him as when he was with the Jags. But
Mark's record.
What else does Mark have?
He's been expunged from the record books. Phillip Rivers has wiped him off. Now it's just Mark Brunell, guy who used to play football.
Yeah, now he has nothing else except for key interceptions in AFC Championship games.
Yeah.
Man, Mark. I'm throwing off my game now.
Yeah, it's a shame.
So this is, if the Chargers have to go to Houston or go to Pittsburgh, they do play Pittsburgh in a couple weeks. I'm talking in the playoffs, though.
Yeah.
Dangerous.
The Chargers?
For the 8th straight year. Los Angeles Chargers, dangerous.
Yeah.
Formerly the San Diego Chargers.
They are. I mean, Joey Bosa being back is obviously huge for them. He had 2 sacks, 3 more hurries over the course of that game, a couple of defensive stops. One of the big stories is that, Melvin Ingram this year has not been nearly as good as he was a year ago. He's still been pretty good. He's got 6 sacks, which obviously is down from last season, even extrapolated over the season. 9 hits, 31 more hurries, which are all, basically every number he's got is down over a year ago, which was a career year for him.
I think there's some dependency on Bosa.
This is where I'm going, right? So now you get Joey Bosa back, and suddenly, it should help Ingram now that he's not the focal point in terms of pass rush, but B, even if it doesn't, you've probably got a better player to have to worry about. So that really could be a major impact or major difference maker for this Chargers defense, having Joey Bosa back. And then obviously you've still got those guys cooking in the secondary, Derwin James, Casey Hayward, the guy from the slot. Who's their slot defender?
Desmond King.
Sorry. You've got those guys cooking. So this defense is kind of dangerous as well.
Oh, absolutely. They're a very dangerous team, both sides of the ball. Good job, Phillip Rivers. Very efficient game. Not so good, Geno Smith. Baltimore currently sitting at number 6 in the AFC playoff picture. They beat the Raiders. Lamar Jackson, 2nd straight win. Felt like the full Lamar Jackson experience again, right? I mean, when I'm looking up, there's misreads of underneath linebackers over the middle.
This week,
and then he's dropping dimes down the field.
Right. This week we got the big plays, and even some of them didn't count. There was at least one deep down the right sideline that got called back for holding. He incidentally tweeted out a video of all of his completions. I think yesterday maybe, as if to be like, "See, I can pass the ball. Look, here, there's a video of it. Watch." His numbers,
these millennials and their pettiness.
His numbers, by the way, are incredible, and they're incredible the opposite way that Cam Newton's are incredible. So Lamar Jackson from a clean pocket this week. Now, bear in mind, clean pocket is where you do your best work. It's usually a passer rating over 100. It's often way over 100. From a clean pocket this week, Lamar Jackson's passer rating was 39.4, which is
like throwing the ball into the dirt. About the same.
Lower than throwing the ball
39.6.
into the dirt every single play. His passer rating when under pressure, though, was 118.8.
Wow.
Which is like the opposite way those numbers should be.
Happens with the Raiders, I guess.
Well, yeah, that's going to help. And then obviously you've got to factor in what he did on the ground, 11 carries, 71 yards, a touchdown, etc. Also fumble the ball, but we will say less about that.
Jim Everett just tweeted at me.
Yeah?
I'm going to call him Chris.
I wouldn't do that. He gets angry when people do that.
He sent me a GIF or a GIF of a turnover in relation to in response to my turnover-worthy play.
Oh, yeah?
I'm going to call him Chris.
I wouldn't.
He doesn't have a table to topple over in front of me. I'll just say, thanks, Chris. Say, thanks, Chris.
Yeah, that'll anger him.
Are people old enough to remember?
Probably not, no.
Just
There's
YouTube.
like 3 people that understand what we're
YouTube,
talking
Jim
about.
Everett, Chris Everett, Jim Rome. It was good stuff. So Baltimore sitting there at number 6. I'm going to my pre-draft analysis on Lamar Jackson, that he is going to be this guy that you could build an offense around and all that stuff, remains. But going up against the Bengals and the Raiders the first 2 weeks,
Right.
probably not the best gauge of anything. And he's still, from a passing standpoint, so inconsistent.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go tweet out his 20 best plays and say, okay, he's the next big
Well, you
thing.
don't need to. He's already done it.
Thanks, Lamar.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of like what we were saying about the Colts offensive line. It's like, yeah, it's nice, but we don't really know anything yet. So, Lamar Jackson's won 2 games. He's done it in 2 slightly different ways. Great, but it was against 2 terrible teams, so what do we know? And the answer is probably nothing yet. Now, where it gets interesting is if you look at who he has to play over the remainder of the season, because we've got Atlanta, whose defense struggles as long as Deion Jones isn't coming back.
Yep.
Which I think is going to be never, so that I keep talking about this is the week Deion Jones is back, and then they're just never going to put him out there.
Yeah,
So
you
that
need to
every
stop doing
week-
that in the preview podcast.
Every week I'm going to preview something that doesn't happen. Then we've got the Kansas City Chiefs defense, which is not exactly good. It's better than we thought it would be.
Getting better.
But it's still, it's not good. Then the Bucs, their defense is terrible. They've been starting guys at linebacker that nobody's ever heard of. Then the Chargers. Okay, that may be a problem. Cleveland Browns. So the end, at least, of the schedule. But we may not know anything about Lamar, essentially, until like week 16.
Yeah, I agree. Or he is what we thought he was, which is, he'll be fun to watch. The rest of the picture here, we've got Baltimore at 6-5. The Colts are now 6-5. They pull off the win against Miami, who falls to 5-6. Obviously, that's a huge game as they're battling for a wild card spot. Also have Tennessee at 5-5 playing tonight. Cincinnati falls to 5-6, and Denver's up to 5-6. So we have 7 teams. Is this right? 7 teams within a game. 6 teams within a game of each other for the final wild card spot right now.
Yeah, and we need to mention that it's week 12, and officially the Cleveland Browns are still in the hunt.
Still playing for real football.
In the hunt. Now, okay, they've got no shot of actually doing anything.
No, they do.
No, they don't.
If we were podcasting back in 1996 and my Jags were sitting there at 5-7, you would have written them off. And I actually had it all mapped out. I said if a million things happen and the Jags win out and they go 9-7, they're going to go to the playoffs.
Right, and that doesn't make that smart. It just means that you were like...
You would have written them off, though, in our hypothetical 1996
You know the way
podcast.
Neil's been picking the Giants every week, and one week he's going to be right? Like, it doesn't make it smart. It just means that finally it went the way you were picking it.
Cleveland might be out, but
So,
they could go 9-6-1.
Like, yeah, you can cobble together a scenario by which the Browns make the playoffs and Baker Mayfield wins the Super Bowl. It's just not going to happen.
Not this year, at least.
No, but I think we don't need to, like, over-egg this, right? Let's acknowledge and celebrate this idea that it's week 12 and they are officially still in the hunt. It doesn't matter that they're not actually going to, have any shot of the playoffs. The idea that in week 12 they don't have to look for the draft already
Right.
is in and of itself an achievement.
As we mentioned, killing our draft content. Baker Mayfield last 2 weeks, I've seen the stat. Everybody's throwing the stats out there. He's got this number 2 passer rating over the last 2 weeks behind only Drew Brees. And my answer has been he's playing exactly how he did before, outside of 2 games where he struggled.
There you go.
He's playing just as well throw for throw as he was earlier in the year. he just has guys like Nick Chubb going up over defenders, picking up, scoring
pretty
touchdowns.
spectacular.
He has David Njoku being thrown into the end zone for touchdowns. Think about what that does to your passer rating when you have a guy thrown into the end zone for you.
That was one of the worst defensive plays of the weekend. That's not going to get talked about by anybody.
Yeah.
So David Njoku catches a short pass, decides to leap his way in the end zone from about 7 yards out, right? Is literally caught in midair by Jesse Bates, who's been a fantastic safety so far in his rookie year, right? Catches him midair like 3 or 4 yards out. Now, at that point, drop him. Let him hit the ground. The play's dead.
Yeah.
Drive him into the dirt if needs be. Just put him on the ground however you need to do it.
Do you practice that play? That's got to be instincts taking over.
Instead, Jesse Bates, having caught David Njoku midair, just stands there with him in his arms, allowing multiple other Browns players to run up behind him and shove them both into the end zone for a touchdown.
Yeah.
That's terrible, terrible defensive play.
Free stats for Baker.
Yeah.
Trust me, when Baker plays well, we're going to tell you the last 2 weeks he's played as well as he played earlier in the year when the stats weren't as good. And again, I just come back to I really appreciate what we do here at PFF because I think we can really isolate the quarterback's play from the results.
Yeah, so
in the last 2 weeks, nothing drastically changed except for the head coaching change, offensive coordinator change, and so nothing changed for Baker personally from a throw-for-throw standpoint. Everything around him got better, though.
Baker really threw Hugh Jackson under the bus
after
that game. Not only did he, recoil from him when he tried to give him a hug after the game, but then, threw him under the bus in the press conference.
I think he just tweeted something out, too. That's going out there.
Last week against Atlanta was Baker's best PFF grade of the season, 85.6, but only marginally. His actual debut against the Jets was 84.3, right up there. The next game was 83. But this week, the game against Cincinnati, was only his 5th best graded game.
You can sort them, by the way.
There you go. 5th best graded
sort
game.
Them
So he's been
too.
right there. It's been right there along with his essential baseline. You had those 2 bad games, 49.2 against the Steelers, 53.5 against the Chiefs. A game against the Chargers wasn't great, but basically all the rest of the games have been right in that same ballpark. They've all been in that low 80s range, which is very good.
Fun storyline to watch. Let's see if Cleveland can potentially run the table and prove Sam wrong here.
Nope.
Never believes in the Browns. That's Sam Monson. Back to Indianapolis real quick. They remain hot. Andrew Luck making huge plays down the field, throws for 3 touchdowns once again. There's talk about him being in the MVP conversation. He's making a move. I mean, he's playing extremely well. They're down 10 in the fourth quarter. I said, he makes fourth quarter comebacks look easy sometimes, and he did it again. Also, Miami was just incompetent offensively, so credit the Colts defense for that as well. But, Luck and the Colts are going to be a dangerous team if they sneak in there.
They are. I mean, they're in the same kind of situation as Seattle in terms of they have a quarterback that is capable of doing crazy things that you don't want to mess with.
Yeah.
This is kind of what the Chiefs or what the Colts have been in years past, right? Only this time he has a little bit more help in terms of scheme around him. Andrew Luck has dragged some pretty god-awful Colts teams to the playoffs in the past few years, and this time he actually has some help. The offensive line is better. It's not amazing. Braden Smith this week, the rookie, struggled pretty badly with Cameron Wake, who apparently is still able to rush the passer a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
He wasn't helped out by the fact that Luck was lingering at the ass end of the pocket, really not giving him anywhere to go.
That was old Luck,
right.
Lingering, yeah.
So he wasn't helped out by that, but I think he was still in trouble regardless.
Yeah.
Wake was turning the corner and going to get pressure, whatever happened. It just helped how easy it was to turn that in. But overall point is that offensive line is dramatically better than it's been in years past for the Colts. Plus, you've got this quick passing game being executed, so Luck has a better system around him. It's not all on him to just make magic happen.
Right.
So the Colts, I think, are way more dangerous than they've been in the past. And in the past, it's been good enough to get them to the playoffs and to scare teams.
And Luck currently is up to number 6, I believe, or 7 in QB grading overall. So he continues to get better and better. The squirrel nuggets or whatever he's eating over there.
Squirrel nuggets?
2 more things to touch on real quick. Andy Dalton injured in that game against the Browns. Might be seeing some Jeff Driscoll moving forward. Not ideal, I don't think, for the Bengals.
You out of your mind? Jeff Driscoll is exactly what they need.
And then we got the full Josh Allen experience where he kicks things. He got a 75-yard touchdown, spectacular throw. We got the low completion percentage, and we have him running the ball, 13 times. And it's not forcing it a little bit too much, I thought, the Bills.
I thought he almost got himself, like, his knee mangled on one play where he got wrapped up and fallen over by a couple of defenders. This, by the way, is the first time I think this season that Andrew Luck has exceeded his 2016 grade. So his 2016 grade was his career high by a distance, 90.4 in the PFF scale. And that really is the only grade he's had that's been amazing, right? The two other decent grades are 77, 79. The 2016 season was this 1 year where we said Andrew Luck finally showing he can be this truly elite quarterback.
And it wasn't his best statistical season.
Right.
At all.
This season he's been good, but it's been just below that 2016 level all the way up until now. This, I think, is the first week where he's exceeded that. We're now at 90.5, so basically identical to that 2016 season.
And that's why Indianapolis is dangerous. We had somebody say they wanted us to talk about Darius Leonard on our show as well.
Okay.
Makes a ton of plays all over the field.
Yeah.
He's in the Defensive Rookie of the Year conversation.
He is.
Big surprise. Stops, forced fumbles. They play a zone-heavy scheme. He does a good job of keeping the ball in front of him. He's played really well this year.
Yeah, it's interesting. PFF does our own count of tackles. There's many problems with the NFL's tackle statistics. They are inaccurate. They are divided up by each individual team. They're counted differently throughout the league, et cetera, et cetera. Many different ways. They're a terrible number. So PFF essentially recounts them. We do our own tackle count when we do the games. And I actually give credit to the guys that made the tackle, not the middle linebacker that may be somewhere near the pile after the play.
We're diving on later.
Yeah. So we have completely independent tackle counts, and even using ours, again, Darius Leonard has just been this tackle machine. So we have him with 83 solo tackles, 19 assists, but more importantly, we've got him with 40 defensive stops, and those are those tackles that are, towards the line of scrimmage. They are defensive successes and offensive failures on the play. So it's short of the sticks on third and fourth down. It's actual impactful tackles, not just being a guy that ended the play after the offense had some success at the time. So, yeah, he is making a ton of positive plays for this Colts defense.
That includes also 6 sacks. His tackles, he's tied with Kuechly in our system, 83 solo for both of them, and then Leighton Vander Esch with 77. And second in those total stops with 40.
Right, and Kuechly is a tackling machine. So if you're in the same breadth as him, you're doing something pretty special.
Pretty impressive. You got Luke Kuechly, then 2 rookies, just from a pure tackles and stops standpoint right up there. So there you go. Some Darius Leonard discussion per request. Josh Allen, we'll have more on him as we go. But more good than bad from Josh Allen in his return from his elbow injury. Blake Bortles had one of the worst throws again. He's throwing end-over-end punts.
I mean,
why is that? I don't want to talk about it, but we have to go. But
I just wanted to say that this idea that if you have to ask the question, what happens if our quarterback actually forgets how to throw the ball at some point in the game, you probably shouldn't have him as your starting quarterback.
It's not good.
Like if that's a question that has to come up in the course of meeting for the week, you've got problems. Problems, by the way, that aren't solved by firing the offensive coordinator.
That just happened too. Nathaniel Hackett is out.
Yeah.
In Jacksonville.
Like the idea that you have to ask that question in the lead up to a big game is probably a bigger issue than who's the offensive coordinator at the time.
Yeah, I'd say so. So that'll do it. I think we tried to hit the entire playoff races on both sides, NFC and AFC. We'll be back again next week or later in the week with a preview of Week 13. Are we still doing free PFF Elites right now?
Last day. Cyber Monday is the last day of a free PFF Elite trial.
So check it out.
Get to ProFootballFocus.com.
You're supposed to fold the papers.
Sign up. Yeah, I'm not folding. I'm crumpling up into a ball.
Fold the papers. Thanks to everyone for tuning in live or listening on the podcast. We'll see you again later in the week. Somebody picked that up.
That was a bad shot.
Oh, I was just trying to throw it in front of the camera.
Oh.
You can't throw it at the camera. That thing's expensive.
You can find a can. It's paper.
Yeah, but you don't want to do that. You don't want to screw up the